Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. Benjamin Netanyahu calls Palestinian recognition disgraceful as dozens walk out ahead of his UN speech. Donald Trump says a deal on Gaza might have been reached after claiming he will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. The US president signs an executive order on TikTok, paving the way for American ownership. Thank you for tuning in. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a speech at the UN General Assembly addressing regional tensions and the ongoing war in Gaza. He also commented on recent international recognitions of the state of Palestine.
This is Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the UN General Assembly on Friday, met with both applause and walkouts.
Please, order in the hall.
As the room grew tense, the chair repeatedly called for order. Netanyahu held up a map titled The Curse, warning of Iran's terror axis. Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Assad regime, which he said threatened global peace and Israel's survival. Netanyahu claimed Israel has crippled Hezbollah, dismantled Hamas's military capabilities, targeted the Houthis, and damaged Iran's nuclear and missile programs, while warning Iranian-backed militias in Iraq they would face the same fate as slain leaders. During his speech, Netanyahu posed a quiz to delegates, using it to highlight what he called the shared ideology and violent actions of Iran and its allies.
Let's do something else first at the UN. Let's do a pop quiz. And raise your hand if you know the answer. Here's the first question. Who shouts death to America? Is it A, Iran, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, the Houthis, or E, all of the above? All of the above. Correct, all of the above. Second question. Who has murdered Americans and Europeans in cold blood? Is it A, Al-Qaeda, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, Iran, or E, all of the above? Correct. Again. So here's the point I wanted to make. Our enemies hate all of us with equal venom. They want to drag the modern world back to the past, to a dark age of violence, fanaticism, and terror.
Netanyahu said loudspeakers surround Gaza to reassure hostages. We have not forgotten you, not ever for a second. Addressing Hamas, he said, "Free the hostages now. If you do, you will live. If you don't, Israel will hunt you down." He said the war in Gaza could end if Hamas accepts Israeli demands, including demilitarization. Netanyahu condemned recent recognition of Palestinian statehood by countries like France and the UK, calling it sheer madness.
US President Donald Trump has said he thinks a Gaza deal has been reached following yesterday's remarks that he will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. Trump engaged in talks on Gaza and the wider Middle East conflict with several Arab leaders at the United Nations. The US president said a ceasefire deal was pretty close, but attention has moved to the West Bank. In August, Israel approved the E1 settlement project, a move condemned by the global community. The plan is to cut off the West Bank from East Jerusalem and divide the territory in two, blocking hopes for a Palestinian state. Trump will meet Netanyahu on Monday and told reporters at the Oval Office that such annexation will not happen under his watch.
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Did you speak with Netanyahu about this?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now.
While Netanyahu has been in New York, Israel struck the Yemeni capital of Sana'a on Thursday, killing at least 8 people and wounding more than 140 others. The attack comes a day after rebels launched a drone attack on southern Israel. Israel struck the densely populated Al-Raqqa neighborhood, leaving buildings in ruins. Israel said Air Force aircraft and fighter jets hit targets belonging to the Houthi group. Donald Trump has criticized Russia's ongoing attacks on Ukraine, reaffirming his claims that Kyiv can reclaim all of its lost territory. After meeting Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky at the UN, Trump said Ukraine is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form with European support. He expressed frustration with Moscow's refusal to stop the fighting and described Russia's military efforts as failing.
I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever, and they are doing very poorly, considering they have put it all out on the line. Their economy is going to hell. They're bombing the hell out of everything, and they're picking up very little territory, if any. In fact, they're losing some territory.
NATO forces have tested new drone technology in efforts to counter emerging threats. These exercises come as the alliance has faced recent security concerns following a Russian drone incursion in Poland and the violation of Estonia's airspace by Russian fighter jets.
NATO has begun testing new drone technologies at bases in Troia, Portugal and the Netherlands this week as the alliance works to prepare against emerging threats. Forces from multiple nations experimented with aerial and submarine drones in Troia in efforts to increase surveillance capabilities. In the Netherlands, NATO special forces produced and tested 3D-printed remote-controlled boats in collaboration with academics and researchers. The option to use 3D printing provides an economic advantage over more expensive military equipment.
Have you seen the incident in Poland? You have to send very expensive jet fighters against very cheap air drone, and in the maritime domain is the same. So with very cheap machine like a 3D printing, we are able to realize a very low cost surface or other things in order to have a less impact on our economics.
The experiments drew on experience from the war in Ukraine, where the use of aerial drones and uncrewed boats has developed rapidly. Special forces from Ukraine took part in the exercise in the Netherlands. The exercise also included companies developing sensors to detect threats to critical underwater infrastructure, such as pipelines and cables in the North and Baltic Seas.
We are trying to defend the critical underwater infrastructure with the newest technologies, but you will be always a little bit behind the enemy because also the threat is evolving, and this is why we are trying, through the innovation and through the collaboration with academia, with the industry and with the soft operators and the lesson learned that we gain from other partners to gain advantage against our enemies.
These tests come as NATO faces alarming security concerns following a Russian drone incursion in Poland and the violation of Estonia's airspace by Russian fighter jets. Some European officials say the Russian disruptions have exposed the vulnerability of European airspace at a time of high tensions between Moscow and NATO.
Earlier, we were joined by Melih Demirtas, a political analyst from Ankara, who said NATO's upcoming meeting will focus on strengthening deterrence amid Russian military actions, with both major powers and smaller allies expected to push for a stronger voice in alliance decisions.
Yes, NATO has such meetings regularly and in a maybe periodical sense. It's the bureaucratic meeting in one sense. The defense, of course, responsible persons, the commanders, defense ministers, they must come together to discuss all the developments regionally and globally. But I think the time period is so sensitive than we maybe are having like 2-3 years ago. because as you also said, that the situation is so clear for Russia. The military operations, I mean, in their terms, the military operations are continuing in several sense. I mean, first of all, in Ukraine, but now we are also seeing that this vulnerable, I mean, territories for the history, I mean, which are Baltic territories, and also even some North European territories, they are also coming under some strange, I want to call it strange, military maybe tactics or operations of some Russian drones or Russian equipments. In such an atmosphere, I think the NATO maybe commanders, NATO defense responsible persons maybe talk about how can maybe, as you said, the deterrence procedure be developed. We have as Turkey and as the other, of course, countries, as the strongest maybe sides of NATO, United States, United Kingdom, in every part, maybe also the small, maybe quote unquote partners of NATO, which are some, of course, having problems in these last terms. I mean, Baltic countries, maybe Poland, even it has increasing budget in NATO. I think they will have much more maybe voices in this especially meeting. But what we will see is that maybe Mr. Trump's decision, because as you may remember that he also has some critical attitude towards NATO in his first months. But after this leaders summit, we can say that something can change, maybe positively, in terms of this NATO procedure, and especially in terms of NATO bureaucracy.
French farmers drove tractors into Versailles on Friday, blocking highways and rallying outside the parliament. They are pushing a bill that would ease environmental rules, including the reauthorization of a pesticide used in sugar beet farming. Environmentalists warn it could harm bees and favor large agricultural business over small farmers. But farmers say amendments from left-wing lawmakers threatened the bill and want it passed as is. The National Federation of Agricultural Holders Unions argues looser rules are needed to keep French farming competitive. The U.S. president has signed a $14 billion deal to shift TikTok's U.S. operations into American hands. The deal limits Chinese ownership to less than 20% and imposes U.S. oversight of the app's algorithms and data flows.
President Donald Trump has signed an executive order on Thursday approving the sale of TikTok's U.S. operations to a group of American and global investors. The deal, valued at about $14 billion, ensures the popular app will remain available to its 170 million U.S. users while meeting the requirements of a 2024 law demanding Chinese divestment. Trump has long argued that Chinese ownership of TikTok posed risks to U.S. data security and political influence. The new entity will be mainly U.S.-owned, with ByteDance retaining less than a 20% stake. According to the order, TikTok's algorithms and data flows will be strictly monitored, and a mostly American board will oversee operations.
This is going to be American operated all the way, and great respect for President Xi, and I very much appreciate that he approved the deal, because to get it done properly, we really needed the support of China and the approval of China.
The White House values the new entity at $14 billion, far below some estimates of up to $40 billion. And Trump has named possible investors, including tech billionaire Michael Dell and media mogul Rupert Murdoch. Analysts warn that the move could open the door to new kinds of influence. Casey Myers, a public relations professor at Virginia Tech, says the biggest question is whether ownership changes will affect what people see on TikTok.
There's also this question, this larger question, that is really unanswerable at this time, in that if media moguls who have media companies that produce content are part of the deal, does their content then start showing up in people's feeds? And does the feed experience change for the individual user? Now, there are those who are arguing that it will. There's those that say that it won't. And ultimately, time will tell. But that is a real question about not only just the technology behind the app or technology behind the social media platform, but also that user experience and the content that it shares and how that relates to the shaping of public opinion.
Investors say the final structure is not yet fixed, and the size of individual stakes could still shift as negotiations continue.
On the eve of the United Nations Security Council meeting to vote on a 6-month extension of Iran's nuclear sanctions, Tehran has stepped up its last-minute diplomatic efforts to avert the return of pre-2015 sanctions.
Iran has intensified diplomacy to prevent the reinstallment of UN nuclear sanctions, both on the sidelines of the General Assembly in New York and at the World Atomic Week in Moscow, as the Security Council meets today to discuss delaying of sanctions. Russia and China, which are permanent member states of the Security Council, have proposed a resolution to extend the Iran Sanctions Resolution 2231 by April 2026 in a bid to strike a deal over Tehran's nuclear program meanwhile. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi have been meeting their counterparts, including from the European powers, France and the UK, which referred their nuclear dispute with Tehran to the world body in August. Araghchi also met for 2 times Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the UN nuclear watchdog IAEA, as well as the EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, to negotiate a breakthrough to the standoff. And Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Gharibabadi wrote on X after meeting the Russian and Chinese envoys to UN and the Security Council non-permanent states that the Tehran IAEA agreement reached in Cairo earlier this month will be cancelled if sanctions are reimposed. In Moscow, head of Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, Mohammad Eslami, said at the World Atomic Week Forum that Tehran's nuclear program is utterly transparent and that there will be no turning back. During his visit to the Russian capital, Tehran and Moscow signed an MOU on building small modular reactors capable of generating maximum electrical power of 300 megawatts each. Iran experts suggest that Tehran's success in securing the support of Russia and China wielding the veto power and the agreement on Russian nuclear reactors may increase the chances of delaying of sanctions. In the meantime, U.S. nuclear negotiator with Iran, Steve Witkoff, and a State Department deputy spokesman have hinted at Washington's readiness to resume the stalled talks with Tehran, which the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman rejected as a deception, citing bombing of its civilian nuclear sites in the middle of negotiations last June. Turad Shiralilu, reporting for A News TV, Tehran.
After a short break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now for the news shaping the region. Uzbekistan is advancing major projects in the nuclear energy sector. Work has begun on both small modular reactors and potential large-scale nuclear power plants. Our Sevil Rajapova has more on that.
Uzbekistan has moved from planning to practical steps in the development of nuclear energy. The small modular reactor project in Jizakh is underway. A 205-ton ingot of alloy steel has been produced for the reactor vessel, marking one of the first material stages of the project. The design includes 6 LITM-200N reactors, each generating 55 megawatts with a combined capacity of 330 megawatts. Construction is expected to start soon, and the first unit is planned to become operational by 2029. In parallel, Uzbekistan is considering the construction of large nuclear power plants. Earlier this year, Uzatom and Russia's Rosatom signed an agreement to study options for up to 4 VVER-1000 units. Combining small modular reactors with large plants would create a carbon-free energy cluster capable of meeting growing demand. These developments come as Uzbekistan's electricity consumption is projected to nearly double by 2030. Nuclear energy is expected to provide a stable and low-carbon foundation to support industrial growth, improve energy security and reduce emissions. At the same time, challenges remain, including the high cost of construction, regulatory processes, and the need to ensure public trust and safety. The next few years will show how effectively these plans can be implemented. It is Cyril Rajapov reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A-News.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has wrapped up his first White House visit in 6 years, meeting U.S. President Donald Trump. They discussed a number of questions relating to defense and trade. Trump also urged Turkey to stop buying oil from Russia, saying it will be the best thing they could do.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has concluded talks with US President Donald Trump at the White House, his first visit in 6 years. The leaders discussed defense, energy, trade, and regional security, indicating a potential reset in Turkey-US relations. During the visit, the two countries signed a memorandum of understanding on strategic civil nuclear cooperation. Turkish Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar said the accord would deepen the deep-rooted and multidimensional partnership between Turkey and the United States in nuclear energy. Trump said sanctions on Turkey's defense sector could be lifted soon, depending on the outcome of the talks. The potential sale of US F-35 fighter jets also remains under consideration.
We're going to be discussing the Patriot system, which is the best system. We'll discuss that. We're going to discuss the F-35. We'll be discussing all of the things that you know about and that some of that you mentioned. And I think he'll be successful with buying the things he'd like to buy.
Erdogan described the visit as an opportunity to strengthen ties, highlighting discussions on F-35 and F-16 jets, economic cooperation, and progress on reopening the Halki Theological School, closed since 1971, a long-standing point of interest for Greece and the European Union. Trump praised Erdogan as a very tough man and reaffirmed their personal friendship. He also stressed Turkey's role as a NATO ally and welcomed Ankara's plans to halt Russian oil imports, saying, "I believe he will stop it," signaling alignment on energy policy. The meeting reflected a thaw in Turkey-US relations, with both leaders signaling intentions to pursue closer strategic, defense, and economic cooperation.
Turkish Airlines announced it's buying 225 Boeing planes after the Erdogan-Trump talks. The company said 75 Boeing aircraft had already been ordered. U.S. envoy to Turkey, Tom Barrack, confirmed the purchase, saying the deal is done. Deliveries of the planes are scheduled between 2029 and 2034. Alongside the U.S. aircraft manufacturer, Turkey's negotiations are ongoing with Rolls-Royce and GE Aerospace regarding engines, spare engines, and engine maintenance services for the planes. At the 80th session of the UN General Assembly, Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev declared the OSCE Minsk Group no longer active. In his address, he said the OSCE Minsk Group, established in 1992 to facilitate a settlement of the conflict, has failed in its mission, adding that instead of enforcing the norms and principles of international law, its co-chairs sought to preserve the status quo and keep the conflict frozen.
And declared its readiness to open Azerbaijan and Armenia initial the text of peace agreement. The same day, the President of Azerbaijan and the Prime Minister of Armenia signed the joint declaration. President of the United States, Donald Trump, also signed it as a witness. Moreover, Azerbaijan and Armenia jointly appealed for the closure of the OSCE Minsk Group and related structures as an obsolete mechanism no longer relevant to the peace process. Accordingly, on 1 September, the OSCE adopted decision to permanently close these structures.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan in Moscow on Thursday. They discussed bilateral trade, which hit a record $11 billion this year. The talks focused on energy cooperation, particularly Armenia's nuclear power plant, which provides some 30% of the country's electricity. Putin noted that Russia is working to extend the plant's operational life. The meeting followed the Global Atomic Forum, part of World Atomic Week, where both leaders participated. After that, Pashinyan headed to New York to attend the UN General Assembly session. In western Kazakhstan, a major gas project is now underway, supporting the country's goal to strengthen its gas production and energy security. This move comes amid wider reforms aimed at attracting investment and increasing efficiency. For more on that, we go to our Fariza Kalimurzina.
A major gas project has been launched in western Kazakhstan. The first stage of production has begun at the Tasplat field in the Mangistau region. The project is being carried out by Tasplat Oil Corporation under the coordination of the Ministry of Energy. At the initial stage, production is expected to reach about 50 million cubic meters of gas per year, with potential growth up to 150 million. The Tasplat gas project ranks as a mid-scale development in Kazakhstan's gas sector, with production volumes significantly smaller than the country's largest fields like Karachaganak. Yet it plays an important role in regional growth and diversification. The Ministry of Energy of Kazakhstan has also announced the launch of similar projects in the Kızılorda and Atrau regions as part of a broader strategy to increase gas production and deepen processing within the country. And according to the ministry, Kazakhstan produced 17.3 billion cubic meters of gas in the first 7 months of this year. However, despite the reserves and export potential, the country faces a shortage due to low domestic tariffs and aging infrastructure. To address this, Kazakhstan has begun reforming its gas sector to build a more sustainable and investment-attractive model. Key elements of the new gas policy include developing the West Prov and Central Urichtau fields, as well as building modern processing plants in the Atrau region using Kashagan feedstock and in Zhanaozen. A project at the Karachaganak field with a capacity of up to 4 billion cubic meters per year is also under consideration. International investors, including the Qatari company UCC Holding, are involved in these developments. At the same time, Kazakhstan is strengthening its role as a transit hub in Central Asia. Last year, the volume of transit gas increased by almost 10%, reaching 69.6 billion cubic meters. Kazakhstan serves as a transit route for Russian gas to Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, as well as Turkmen and Uzbek gas to China. Additionally, the country has an agreement to export its own gas to China until 2026, which is an important factor for its position in the regional market. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
The ISU Figure Skating Junior Grand Prix is wrapping up here in Baku. The free dance and women's free program will decide who takes home the titles. Our Narchichak Jahangirli is there at the ice rink.
At last, the day has arrived when we will find out who is more skilled on the ice. On the final day of the Junior Grand Prix in figure skating, the pairs already presented their free dance routine. Right now, behind me, women are performing their free program on the ice. Yesterday, on the second day of the competition, 22 athletes from 21 countries competed in the men's free program. Based on the results of the free program, South Korean athlete Min Kyu-seo took first place. Belgian Denis Krauglov came in second, and American athlete Kelly Farrington secured third place. At the award ceremony, the medals were presented to the winners by the president of the Azerbaijan Winter Sports Federation, Fuad Naghiyev, and the Secretary General of the Azerbaijan Winter Sports Federation, Günel Badalova. In the evening, the award ceremony for the pairs and women competing in the free program will take place. With that, our work at the ice rink comes to an end. Stay with us to watch the detailed report on the winners. I'm Narchik Jahangirli, here with Khalid Aliyev, A News.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.